Hello, listeners, and welcome to Beyond the Mirror. This isn't just another podcast, it's a deep dive into the world of beauty, wellness, and longevity. Now, we're here to discuss what beauty really means beyond just appearances. We'll also talk about wellness, the habits and practices that keep us healthy, full of energy, and we'll explore the topic of longevity, looking at the science and realities of living a long, fulfilling life. So sit back, relax, and join us as we go beyond the mirror.
Welcome, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here for another amazing episode of Beyond the Mirror. We have our guest speaker, Dr. Shawn McKenzie. He is a dear friend of mine, and we are going to be delving into the intricate workings of the vagus nerve, which has a lot to do with our mental and physical processes and our stress response mostly. And so we're going to be diving into what that means for you as the listener, how it affects you, and what there is to know about it, some tools that you can take away and understand about your own body to help calm that stress response. And so welcome, Dr. Shawn. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, both of you ladies. I appreciate the opportunity to share our knowledge with the public.
Absolutely. Now, you have a very interesting backstory of how you became a chiropractor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. As a child, I enjoyed taking my toys apart and understanding how they worked. So I would take them apart, put them back together in order to figure out exactly the way they worked. So as I grew older, I really enjoyed learning about health and fitness. So I felt that learning and applying those two things together, there would be an absolute prime opportunity for me to help people with their difficulties in the way that their body should be operating. So it is very extremely common in this day and age for us to experience some sort of ailment that is inhibiting us from experiencing a high quality life. So I wanted to dedicate my time on this earth here today, as well as in the future, to helping people getting back to functioning well.
Absolutely. Now, you take a few different modalities and you've blended them together. So tell us about these three modalities.
Sure. As far as stress, the three forms of stress, we have three different forms of stress that we encounter on a daily basis, whether it is purely a structural or a physical stressor that we're coming across. Something is, for example, as a nice run. Although it feels good, it may be a little bit stressful on the body and the joint systems. Next, talking about other forms of stress, whether it's a chemical stressor. Unfortunately, today's foods and liquids that we are consuming are not the most advantageous for our body to heal. Therefore, it creates some sort of stress on our cellular level, and it inhibits our body to heal. Additionally, air qualities or our environments can play a role in inhibiting our body's ability to heal with that form of stress. And lastly, emotional stressors. Emotional stressors can as well inhibit our body's ability to heal. So using those three forms of understanding as well with a chiropractic education and applying those treatments and therapies, they can certainly do a lot of help in getting the body to a homeostatic position or a healing position.
Absolutely. And tell me, so you've taken chiropractic because you practice a little different. I've grown up in chiropractic. My mom has been taking us to the chiropractor since we were like 2 years old, probably even younger than that, And so I remember even going, as a young kid, very consistently. Our chiropractor's name was Dr. Turner, which was really funny because, he had all these crooked pens. So it was always fun to go to his place. And then he retired. Now, since moving here to the Midwest, because I'm originally from California, there is a lot of chiropractic offered here. But you have set yourself apart because you've added a couple of, you've combined chiropractic with applied kinesiology and muscle testing. So the way that you get to the root of what it is that's going on is very intricate and just amazing. And I've not seen anything like it. And I'm like not easily impressed. I'm always like so impressed. So tell us a little bit about how you combine those.
Absolutely. So, in regards to the way that the body should function, is our body, of course, we have our skeletal system, okay, and our nervous system that is deeper. Of course, as we understand, the brain will actually tell the rest of the body how to operate, and sending these signals from the brain down to the body and the body back up to the brain. Now, in doing so, those signals can have a certain function, whether it's for a muscle to contract, or whether it's an organ to do its job, or whether it's to relax the rest of the body. So, in regards to those evaluations, I use a chiropractic approach through the nervous system as well as the musculoskeletal system for a muscle test. Now, a muscle test is really extremely, it's an art. It is very much so an art, and it takes a lot of practice to perfect this diagnostic tool, but it can be used as a very helpful diagnostic tool. The idea behind the muscle testing itself is, if we find a muscle that is not contracting and staying contracted, or through a sustained resistant contracted test, then we're finding that muscle is effectively not working as it should. So there's a thing called therapy localization. It's essentially in conjunction with using this muscle test. You can have the patient place their hand on any region of their body that you're looking to evaluate. Now, this comes into play when we're talking about the three forms of stress, whether it's a structural, a chemical, or an emotional stressor. There are certain connections that the body has based upon many, many acupuncture meridians that can be evaluated and utilized to your advantage. So essentially, if we're finding some sort of muscle inhibition, that the nervous system is unable to contract that muscle as it's supposed to, we can find, in conjunction with those, keeping those acupuncture meridians and our thoughts, to where we can find some sort of therapeutic outcome that would be advantageous for that particular person. So the applied kinesiology technique, or essentially it's more of a diagnostic tool in conjunction with the muscle testing, the acupuncture meridians. It also uses reflexology, and then a few selective chiropractic techniques itself as well for the actual adjustment of the joint, or if it's needing or if the therapy is calling for some sort of organ treatment, there can be opportunities to treat an organ through adjustments or chiropractic measures such as acupressure or acupuncture as well.
You know, it's interesting you bring up muscle testing, because I for a long time, I always kind of a skeptic, which is so ridiculous because I'm so woo woo. Like, I have a lot of woo woo in me. But over time, I've kind of taken it and learned of it to be like, you're asking your body a question and it's answering you, you know? And we all know that there's hidden mysteries going on, you know, that we can't like say, hey, liver, why are you being so weird? You know, but you guys have learned the skill of saying, hey, this point on the body, why are you being so weird? And getting kind of a response. I know it's just a yes, no, and you're having to ask specific questions, but I want to take out that muscle testing is just woo woo. Like, there's something there. There is a response. And, you know, it's a really interesting way to approach health for sure. Mm-hmm. But you need somebody that's very talented at it, because there's a lot of not so talented people doing that type of work.
And I completely agree. In regards to the practitioner itself, the doctor performing the work on the patient, they must be extremely grounded and have well intent in regards to the treatment of the patient, with no preconceived suggestions of what the patient is needing. So I do completely agree with you. It does take a certain grounded, well-mannered person or physician applying these methods to the patient treatments in order to get the appropriate results. And as well as on the flip side of that, it's extremely essential that the patient is focused and well understood that these treatment methods, they are, although they can be extremely difficult to understand, and at times it's extremely important for the patient to not coerce their body into artificially changing a muscle test itself. So it is a very much so a specific art to the treatment itself.
Yeah. And talking about like the vagus nerve, can you kind of share like what it is and why it's so important in our nervous system for those that don't know anything about it?
By the way, that includes me.
So we have
speaking common language for the normal folk.
Absolutely. So the vagus nerve is one of our cranial nerves. A cranial nerve is a nerve that actually comes off of our brainstem. Okay, so we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves that come off the brainstem, and all of these have very specific functions. So the vagus nerve itself, it has two aspects of it. It is a sensory as well as a motor nerve. So therefore, it's split into two. It's got two main functions, whether it's the sensory, such as touch. Okay, there's the portion of the nerve that has relation to the touch and the tongue, and then also there's the motor aspect as far as digestion and relaxation. So this cranial nerve itself is what we call a parasympathetic nerve. Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. So in our nervous system, we have two main aspects, or two certain particular areas of the nervous system. We've got on one end of the spectrum, we got our sympathetic nervous system. The other aspect, we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system, it is more of your fight or flight response area of the nervous system. And that is in relation to when we're looking at the spine, those nerves essentially reside in the middle back, or what you call the thoracic spine. Okay. The parasympathetic nervous system, the region of the spine that it resides is in the cervical or the neck, and the lumbar or the low back. So, of course, the parasympathetic nervous system, relating back to the vagus nerve, as you can understand, is if it is not having appropriate function, your body has some difficulty relaxing. Okay, so when it is appropriately functioning, your body is more likely to rest and digest. So therefore, there are certain things that you can do to promote the vagus nerve, such as doing breathing exercises, humming. Okay, many other opportunities that will promote vagus nerve stimulation that are extremely important, essential, especially in this day and age when it's very common for most people to not focus on their own personal health as much and have difficulty relaxing as a result of that. So I do greatly appreciate the vagus nerve for what it is and what it offers. So any particular questions about the vagus nerve from what I've shared at this point?
Well, actually maybe not specific to that, but I'm a big advocate for grounding. Does that actually have an effect on the vagus nerve specifically? Because it can be like, I don't know if you've seen the graphic that has the person MRI before grounding, MRI after grounding, and it shows like just the total or scan before and after, and the inflammatory factors just drop significantly within an hour of grounding. Does that have an effect on the vagus nerve, or do you know?
Absolutely. So anytime that we're reducing stress from the body or inflammation or of any form of stress, that for that matter, we are promoting parasympathetic stimulation. So absolutely. So anytime you were to ground, again, as a result is reduced inflammation, therefore your body can rest. Okay. So 100% there's a correlation. As far as the specifics, I don't have that knowledge at this point in time. Plus it would be something extremely intricate and detailed, but absolutely. When we understand that when we provide relaxation to the nervous system, we are promoting that parasympathetic stimulation and relaxing the body as a whole.
So you're telling us getting a facial is a good idea, because it's relaxing.
It is relaxing.
I always say there's actually studies that show the act of getting a facial, not even the actual process, but the act of getting it, just because of the relaxation and how it brings the person down into a more relaxed mode, reduces aging.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it also is positively affecting the vagus nerve.
Well, it's interesting because it's in the face too. So,
Yeah.
it's like, it's awesome.
So I have a question about vasovagal. Is that something you know much about?
Not at this point in time. I have talked about it a bit, but what is your question? I may be able to shed some light on what you're asking.
Well, we see that in here quite a bit. Like if
Yeah.
someone's getting an injection or if they maybe have to get an IV and they have this just whoosh response.
Work themselves up.
Is that just a big cortisol hit from the vagus nerve? Is that kind of do you have any idea what triggers that?
I don't. Now the vagus nerve is purely a relaxation nerve. Okay, so it likely has some other cortisol spike from the adrenal glands. Of course. So if you can imagine, if we are in perfect balance, again, the sympathetic nervous system being over here and the parasympathetic nervous system being over here, if we're creating some sort of spike in the sympathetic nervous system, we're essentially creating imbalance. Therefore, the body has a response which is more of a fight or flight response. So anytime we have that imbalance of the two portions of the nervous system, it's likely where somebody's going to get a response, whether it's excitatory or relaxatory.
Okay.
Yeah. And with our chronic stress being so high in modern society, you kind of touched on a couple of different things that you can do. The deep breathing is huge. We just did a whole workshop on deep breathing and using some techniques to help that. You talked about humming. What other things can somebody do to help calm that stress level down in the body?
Sure. By chewing. By chewing, actually, you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system to allow the body to digest foods and relax. So that is a large one, and I may talk about that actually just for a moment. At this day and age, most people are in a rush to eat their foods. So when you slow down and you chew your foods about 20 to 25 times per portion of the food that you're placing in your mouth, you're actually stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system, specifically the vagus nerve, to relax, okay, and promote passage of food. So it's extremely important that you slow down, eat your foods. And let's just talk about that as well. Another thing that can help promote the vagus nerve stimulation is by avoiding liquids when you're eating foods, okay? It's extremely common for people to drink fluids while they're eating, typically due to the fact that they're not chewing enough and slowing down. We actually have a gland within our mouth that will shoot out saliva to help break those foods down and allow for swallowing of those foods. So again, fluids while eating is another way to promote that vagus nerve stimulation. Of course, when you're going back to talking about facials, anything that is a form of self-love and self-care is going to stimulate that vagus nerve as well.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that in here.
Yeah.
It's funny, we were doing it for everybody else. I don't think we're as good about doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
But then I find other ways, like we were talking about grounding, and I find other ways outside of here to find those. Actually, I stopped drinking liquid with my meals a long time ago after listening to someone say what you're saying. And I do think, but I don't have very many digestive issues, but I've heard it helps with digestive issues also. If you really chew your food and if you stay away from liquids while you're eating.
Absolutely. The stomach set to a certain acidic pH level. And of course, water is either neutral or more basic. So we're offsetting the pH level in our stomach. The reason for the acidity in the stomach is to break those foods down, okay? To cleanse or sterilize and break those foods down. And if we are taking any liquids, and of course we're creating some difficulty with that natural digestive process. So of course that can off-put the appropriate vagus nerve stimulation as it's intended to do so.
Is there a certain time period before and after a meal that you should still stay away, or once you're done eating, you're good to go? And I ask this as a wine drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm out for a social meal and I'm going to not drink when I'm eating, but can I then proceed to drink immediately after without undoing the benefits of the way I ate my food?
Sure, that's a great
Do you know?
That's a great question. I always typically tell everyone to avoid any liquids if possible for about 30 minutes prior to a meal, of course, during a meal, and then about 30 minutes after a meal. Gives the body opportunity to do its natural digestive process and breaking those foods down. So yes, approximately for about an hour to an hour and a half to ensure that you're giving your body the best opportunity to break those foods down and not create any sort of digestive stress.
And speaking of, so heavily about digestion, how significant is the digestive process in calming the body and keeping the stress level down? I know it can be a stressor, but it also helps with stress. So,
absolutely. Anytime
yeah.
we have some sort of inflammation within the digestive tract, it is creating a low level stress on the body, of course. So anytime that we have some sort of inflammation or stress, that's going to create the body is going to register as a concern. Okay. Now, what level of concern, that it just depends upon the body's environment, what other sort of stressors that it's currently handling. But absolutely, when the digestive system has inflammation throughout the entirety, whether it's the upper digestive tract, meaning the stomach, or the lower digestive tract, meaning the intestines, it's going to create some difficulty in rest and relaxation. Of course, there is not going to be appropriate digestive processes for you to get removal of those wastes from those food products. Therefore, those things that we'll just talk about this briefly. Is constipation is extremely common in this day and age, and that is going to create more of an inflammatory, of course, and sympathetic nervous system response as it has to recycle over and over again those toxins the body is trying to get out. So therefore, it is not promoting vagus nerve stimulation, and actually just doing quite the opposite. Therefore, it is extremely important to making sure that your digestive system was working as most efficiently as possible. So, and things that we've talked about as far as self-care, self-love, humming, singing, chewing your foods, avoiding liquids while eating, and of course, any other methods that you may feel that are appropriate to help your nervous system relax or settle itself are extremely important. I do want to add from a chiropractic or a structural perspective as well, that anytime the digestive system is stressed due to not enough vagus nerve stimulation, it can certainly affect the entirety of the body from a structural perspective. If we think about it, the digestive system sits in our lower abdomen, and the leading cause of pain in today's society is low back pain. That's what most people will seek out care for. And if you think from an anatomical perspective, the digestive system sits right next to the low back. So it's extremely important that we are doing our best, working diligently to relax our body, promote that vagus nerve. Therefore, we're feeling or dealing with less ailments.
Yeah, so interesting. The low back thing, and yeah.
That's one I don't have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's one of the few. It's one of the few body pains I don't have to
That's
fight.
awesome. You had the upper shoulders.
Mine's all from work,
Yeah.
repetitive motion, 23 years of being an esthetician. So,
Sure.
And we had just taught on Tuesday this week a workshop, and somebody had asked about the low back pain, and yeah, it is so closely tied to digestion. Tell us about one of your most favorite testimonials for your clients.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then this will work perfectly into the transition of what we just talked about as far as digestion goes and the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, its pathway comes off of the brain stem and it will actually come through the front of the face, right in this region near the cheekbones and just below them. It will actually come down through the front of the neck, connect and go down into the stomach itself. Okay. So it can be stressed at any point throughout that pathway. Oftentimes, I find clinically it is stressed at the stomach itself. Now, the stomach resides just below the front of the rib cage on the left hand side. Now, the vagus nerve, when it is stressed at the stomach itself, you will find oftentimes having some difficulty with breathing, okay, or taking deep, whether it's taking deep breaths or when you are going to exercise and trying to challenge and take bigger deep breaths when it's needed, having difficulty doing that. It's also common if there's stress in the vagus nerve in this region, someone may have digestive stress itself, whether it's acid reflux, whether it's bloating, whether it's gas, whether it's indigestion, any of those things all likely indicate some sort of vagus nerve dysfunction. So a fun testimony, a really appreciative testimonial for me from a clinical perspective was I had a patient with acid reflux for about 20 years. She had been on acid reflux over-the-counter medication for at least 10 to 15 years. And she
Which
was
is terrible for you.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely terrible for you. And she had been told before she had what's called a hiatal hernia. Okay. Now, from what I understand, the medical evaluation and interpretation of the hiatal hernia is where the stomach has actually sucked up into the diaphragm hiatus, inhibiting the diaphragm from contracting. So you got the diaphragm in the chest, that is. Okay. And if there is an inhibition of contraction of the the diaphragm, again, some difficulty with vagus nerve stimulation, and someone may experience anxiety as well. So this patient also had anxiety. And of course, the story is going to deepen even further. The stomach is our seat of our emotions. It's where that and the solar plexus resides there as well. So there are many facets or of stress that can be contributing to this vagus nerve dysfunction. So this particular patient, let's just recap real quickly. She was having some acid reflux. She was having some anxiety and some difficulty breathing. So the opportunity to specifically hone in on how we could address, from a chiropractic perspective, the vagus nerve at this particular location at the stomach by actually treating the stomach through chiropractic methods, we were able to give her immediate relief. Now, the some of the symptoms had come back shortly thereafter, so we were able to address specifically what was able to provide relief for her from a structural perspective, which for her it was that there was repetitive stress of that digestive tract and that vagus nerve contributing to the stomach itself. So therefore, it was from a structural perspective, her abdominal muscles were having difficulty anchoring down and holding the stomach back where it belongs. So it would slide up into her chest and create this difficulty of her processing her foods and breathing and creating anxiety. So once that was resolved, we're able to get down to the fact that she wasn't producing the appropriate digestive enzymes. So we're able to provide a specific digestive enzyme for her body to assist her in reducing the digestive stress. And that was helpful, but there was still a little bit stressed. So unfortunately, she still had some emotional stress tied to this particular ailment that she was experiencing. And a close colleague of mine was able to help her out with process some of the emotions that she had never processed throughout her lifetime. So in this particular manner, this particular case, I really enjoy all three facets of stress that this person was going through that was contributing to this vagus nerve stress of hers. That was so Just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to help people in this particular arena to get to the root cause and to contribute to rest and relaxation, which many of us are having the difficulty of doing.
Yeah, I really think it's so important to view the body as a whole and look at, all the different aspects. Like you're saying, it's sometimes not just one thing. And especially if you correct one issue and then you still have the same thing pop up over and over and over again, it's time to kind of, get your detective hat out and start looking at where else is it showing up and how is it affecting the whole chain of events. The body is very good at compensating for what it needs to compensate for. And so I love that you put your detective hat on. I was just at Dr. Shawn's office Wednesday this week. Today's Thursday, so yesterday. And he went ahead and did his full assessment. He made his corrections for me. I felt amazing. And he's like, nope, there's still something that's off. Let me fix it. And even though I was over on the amount of time, he still took his time with me and made sure that I didn't leave there not 100%. So I so appreciate that. We've absolutely have enjoyed the care that you've been giving us, and look forward to such an amazing partnership, which we have already teamed up, and we're out there, healing the world, which is awesome.
How can, two things, if someone can't come to you because they're not here, how do you recommend someone find someone like you in the world if they're not local?
Sure. So there is a website. So it's the ICAK. The ICAK stands for the International Chiropractic Association, or Applied Kinesiology Association. So if they take a look on the ICAK's website, they can find a applied kinesiology practitioner that does use muscle testing, somewhere near them. Okay. And that's the absolute best route that I recommend in order to finding those practitioners. Typically, those type of practitioners are not they're not easily findable on through social media or through websites. They're pretty busy in the trenches, really helping people. So their advertising bits are quite a bit different from most other chiropractic practitioners. But through the ICIK website, you should be able to find someone near you. And if not, then I would highly recommend reaching out to them specifically and see if there are some that are flying under the radar that may have had their credentials, or excuse me, their registration through the ICAK backlogged. So there are certainly many opportunities to reach out and find someone that can assist you in this level of depth if you wish to find one.
And then how can people find you? Like, what's the best way to learn, see more about what you're doing, or like what are your best methods for someone to follow along with you?
Absolutely. So on Facebook, you'll find my business page, which is McKenzie Chiropractic. That's McKenzie. Of course, chiropractic is spelled ChiroPractic. On that business page, I have some very educational videos that relate to common things that I find in practice, as well as misconceptions of chiropractic, or just educational information to get people to think about their daily lives and where they may have some areas where they could improve. Additionally, I'm located in St. Peters, Missouri. If you're familiar with the St. Peters area, there's a large recreational area for children and sports of all of those related, called the Recplex. I'm located very near there on Mexico Road in St. Peters, Missouri. Additionally, my
Awesome.
website.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Additionally, my website. My website is mystpeterschiro.com. That's mystpeterschiro.com. And on my website, you'll have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about me, as well as opportunities to my direct scheduling booklet.
Awesome. Any final thoughts on health and wellness and holistic practices that you want to add for our listeners?
Absolutely. I would definitely share with everyone, and I would like to empower everyone to really consider where they may be able to make some improvements in their own life, whether it's from a physical perspective, whether if you are going to exercise more frequently. I highly recommend setting goals for yourself and keeping up with those goals. Consistency is one of the many things the key to success. I oftentimes find that most people are having difficulty with success because of the lack of consistency or a lack of knowledge. So I highly recommend that you ask questions to understand more. Ask questions of those people that you do know that are resources, or ask questions by doing research for yourself. And don't take everything as you know as a the end all be all, because everyone is different. There's more opportunities for us to learn and to excel. So additionally, from the chemical perspective, I definitely would like to empower everyone and reflect upon their own personal diets and fluid intakes. Is there anywhere that you feel that you may be able to improve? It's extremely common for people to be walking around dehydrated. Dehydration plays a large role on the body's ability to have dysfunction. And of course, there's a lot that can be said for appropriate fluid intake, as Dina and I have discussed in the past. It's extremely important that we're drinking clean water. So I definitely empower others that if you're drinking tap water to reevaluate and see if there are other opportunities for you to take in a more cleaner source of water to contribute to your internal health. And then from the emotional perspective, I definitely empower everyone to take time for themselves each and every day, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour. It's extremely essential for us to take that time to decompress, promote that vagus nerve stimulation, and get back to healing as we're designed to do. And if you're having difficulty with that, I highly recommend you reach out to some sort of holistic practitioner that can assist you with their means of treatment that they can provide for you to get you back to a better, healthier, higher quality of life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on here today, listeners. We appreciate you. We would love for you to like, subscribe, share this podcast, and give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We need you to give us that review, and so we can grow and have more amazing topics for you in the future.
Thanks for joining us, Shawn.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate your time.
This from before.
We want to make a quick but important disclosure. The information and advice shared in this podcast are intended to provide general knowledge and understanding about wellness and health-related subjects. They are not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new health regimen. Remember, your health is your responsibility, and it's always best to consult with a healthcare professional.